Hey you guys, so we're back with another Zap exclusive, and we are here with the producers of the hit film Donyale Luna Supermodel, out now on HBO Max, streaming. Alright, so let's go and do an introduction.
We like that.
Go ahead and start off.
I'm Melissa Kramer, one of the producers.
Hi, I'm Isoul Harris, one of the producers as well.
Melanie Sharee, one of the producers.
Okay, so if you guys missed it, they're all the producers.
Collectively, we produced this film.
Absolutely. So talk to us about what even inspired this film.
I'll let Melissa and Isoul speak to that.
I guess a lot of things inspired this film. We can start with Melissa. Melissa was the initial link to our even discovering Donyale Luna. You know, not that we discovered her, but just us learning about her,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Melissa, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I can share that. So I actually was at an exhibit, and I saw an image of an illustration of a woman on the cover of Harper's Bazaar from 1965, and the caption read, "The first black woman to cover Harper's Bazaar and Vogue." And I was like, I've never heard of this person. But also it was an illustration, so I couldn't really see, you see the likeness, but then I went and Googled, and then all of these images appeared. And she was, as we all know, so stunning, and I just became mesmerized and started reading and learning a little bit more about her, and just became like fascinated by her story.
How were you able to tie it in to now be able to get the entire team in place?
So Melissa, when she learned of Donyale Luna, we were working together. So I was an editor at a magazine called Uptown, and Melissa was the creative director. Mm-hmm. And so we had a charge of doing a Black History Month story it was a branded content story, I think, for some corporate ad. And the editor-in-chief at the time, Angela Bronner-Helm, she asked us to find someone who no one knew about, because we were tired of doing the usual suspects, for Black History Month, the same people. Those people are great, but we wanted people to learn of someone new, contemporary history, So Melissa came back with the name Donyale Luna, and we were all just blown away because most of us had worked in fashion, we had worked in editorial all our careers, and for our knowledge, we thought Beverly Johnson was the first woman to be on the cover of Vogue, And so when we learned of Donyale Luna, we were just blown away. We're like, how do we not know about this woman? So we did the story, and when it came out, Melissa and I were talking, and I said, Melissa, this is bigger than Uptown. Like, we have to do like a movie on this. Now, neither one of us had done a movie before, but we just knew like it had to be something bigger than this, right? So so it just went from there, and I think the story ran, and Donyale Luna's manager, his name is Omar, he's in the film, and he's passed away since, God rest his soul, but he contacted us after seeing the story. And it kind of just steamrolled from there.
Yeah, I think when he reached out, that was sort of kind of started to solidify, like, this is something we could really do. Exactly. And he himself said, if you guys ever decide to do a project, I'm here to help you. And he was at the time in his 80s, and then by the time we actually made the film, he was 90 when he did that interview.
And he does not seem 90 in the film. He looks very
He looks fly.
He looks fly, right? Yeah.
And he was really inspiring.
But then he passed right after we finished the film.
So you get a chance to see it?
No, and that's really, I'm really sad about that.
But it's almost as if he held on long enough to make sure Donyale's story was told.
Right.
Because he was so adamant about people really learning about who this woman really was. So it's almost as if he was like, okay, Donyale, I'm going to do this for you. And once he made sure that it was done.
Then it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, R.I.P. And Donyale's story was told really beautifully. Big shout out to Nayla, right? That came in to direct. How did that come about?
Well, there was an initiative that was happening at the American Black Film Festival, and that initiative was in search of amazing documentaries. And in that process, Melissa and Isoul, you know, I know them prior to this. Well, not so much Isoul. We didn't really
No, we didn't know each other.
officially, right? I just heard of him for years. But Melissa and I knew each other, and I knew that she was obsessed with the story of Donyale. She wanted to tell Donyale's story. She'd go on and on about it for, like, as she said, since she discovered her. So a long time. And we had this initiative at the American Black Film Festival that was searching for new voices, new stories by people of color, which is the mission of that festival, always. And it was an opportunity to make documentary film. And through that process, I said to Melissa, you really want to tell the story of Donyale Luna, like, this is a perfect opportunity, like, you got to go for it, you know. And so she did, and Isoul, they came back together and pushed it. And then we also met Nayla Jefferson. So she's a filmmaker. But I had met her through one of her short films that she did, which was in conjunction with the HBO short film competition. So I met her that way, but outside of that, she too put herself forward for the initiative. And it just made sense, as Melissa and Isoul are not film like directors, but obviously a film of this nature at this level, we all have to make sure that we are together as a team, but that we have a director on board to direct it, right? It's how we felt collectively. So we were able to put everyone together and collaborate. It's beautiful. Which we love, because, you know, the more of us that get to collaborate and have these opportunities, the better.
I still remember when Melissa called me and told me that you had told her about it, and I said no. I was like, Melissa, we absolutely have to do this.
Well, it was kind of right. There was sort of a pause. Like, should we go this way?
I was like, yes.
I was like, should we do this?
Literally, I remember getting on my computer that night, and I started writing like the treatment. Like, I was like, what's a log line? So I was like, well, look at the log line. So I started writing it. I have all those incarnations of it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, so,
but I think what's beautiful about that is that it speaks to, and this goes for all of us, that it speaks to that we often get held back by our fears, right? We get held back by our fears, or not knowing if we're really going to be able to do the thing, or if this is the right thing, or just scared of is it going to happen? You know, I think so many of us, no matter what careers we take on and what we're doing, we have many, many of those moments, like where we second guess something, or we're not quite sure if we're ready, or whatever it might be.
I think that's also a great testimony of what the film shows and what Donyale's story is just about. She wasn't respected here, so she went on and on and on and became the first black supermodel because she wasn't held back by, I guess, what you would call restrictions. She broke that down. It's really interesting to see that you guys wanted the first black story to tell for Uptown. You guys had a situation happening with ABFF that's like, hey, we had a new situation happening for a new story, and it all came together. What would you say is the biggest takeaway from this entire process for each of you?
Good question. That's a great question.
I've said this a lot in other interviews, and I said it at the first screening that we had at ABFF, which was so good. It was the first time we saw it with an audience, and afterwards the reaction from the audience was it kind of blew me away, because people were coming up to us and they were crying and telling their story, and I'm like, wow. And it made me realize, like, this is the power of film, like, this is the power of this medium, right? But even more than that, it's also like the power of not allowing, like Melanie was just saying, not allowing your fears to stop you, you know, and not allowing what people consider to be non-experience to stop you, right? So I always say, you know, even though we've never made a film before, we're still creative, right? And it made me realize the importance of knowing that creativity is transferable, you know? So if you're working on Wall Street, that doesn't mean you can't work over here in tech. It doesn't mean you can't make a film. It doesn't mean you can't make a song, you know? And so we have been putting together magazines like all of our careers, right? But we just use that to put together a movie, you know? You know, so I just tell people, just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean you can't do it.
Absolutely.
It just means you just need to learn and put yourself out there and put one foot in front of the other, and then here we are.
Yeah. It's a really good takeaway. It's a good takeaway.
I think he answered all of it.
I don't know if I have anything to add, because he's so sort of perfectly
I mean, we will say
put it together.
that was the adage, as we say, American way, is that you have to be prepared to meet the opportunity. And that is a huge thing, and we hear it often, right? Because many times the opportunity does come knocking. Are you ready to meet it, right? And that's the they were ready to meet it.
If you stay ready, you never gotta get ready.
And one more, that's very true. And one more thing. So I heard an interview with Rick Rubin recently, and he was saying that ideas, none of us own ideas. Like, just because you have an idea in your mind, that you don't own it. Like, ideas are birthed from the ether. Ideas are just swirling around, and it may happen to land with you. And if you don't do it, it's going to continue to go. It's going to go to someone else. Because I know all of us have had ideas, and we didn't act on them, and we saw someone else. We were like, damn, I had the same idea. But ideas keep going. Ideas are like everything else in this world. They're energy. And energy just keeps going unless you act on it.
I think that I'm glad you said that, because I was just thinking about this earlier today, that I remember through this process, because it was a process, it was a journey.
Ebbs and flows.
For many years, right? And there were all these things that...
How many years? People probably don't even know.
Well, I mean, the first time I came across her was 2006, but then when we were working together and this article that Isoul referenced, that was 2012. So that's really when things started.
10 years.
So we're really like 10 years. But I think through that time, I always kept thinking to myself, like, how would I feel if someone else told this story? Like, if this came, because, like to Isoul's point, it's not like we're the only ones who had the idea. But that's for me what always kept sort of driving it, was like, I would be devastated if someone else came and told the story. And also just feeling, I think another takeaway is just like, sort of just the inspiration of now, because I think, let me go back. One of the sort of motivating forces was to let the world know who she was,
Absolutely.
right? Because so many of our stories as Black folks get lost. And so it was just for us, I think we just felt it was so important for people to know her story. And so now, to see that like all these people are really responding, and now I can't believe I didn't know her story. It's like that in and of itself is it's just so like rewarding and kind of comes full circle. And also for her daughter Dream,
absolutely,
to like be able to sort of reconcile and have her own healing through the process. It just shows how powerful this idea is, and you execute it and what it can be.
It also shows like not only the power of our stories, but also the value of our stories. There's value in us telling our stories, but also we have to know that our stories are valuable. And so all of us are sitting on just all of this what we call content now, but we should be there's so many things in this industry that keep people away from it, not only just like the disconnection from it, thinking that you can't make a film or you can't make them, but it's also people not being paid what they're worth and all these things. And I just feel like, don't allow that to stop you, and always like push for what you're worth, because our stories mean everything. Like, our stories are so valuable, So don't allow someone to tell you that your story is not worth anything, and don't allow someone to tell you that you're not worth being paid for your story, Because we live in a capitalist society. Everything boils down to money. Everything.
And our culture drives entertainment.
Yes.
We are the drivers, you know what I mean, across the board. One of the beautiful things, having that whole Lightbox team.
Shout out to Lightbox.
Yes. Support us. Well, the guidance was invaluable. Invaluable. So that was a wonderful thing. And I think collaborating is beautiful. Like, it doesn't always, we often in this business, people do tend to get a little bit like, hold everything to themselves. You know what I mean? In this instance, it really was a big group activity and a family that kind of came together from different sort of portals, as it were. And it was great.
I think Drew even said it best. She said she felt connected. And she said people have been asking for years and years, but for whatever reason, this situation felt right for her. Specifically you, she said. Mom said go with her. So that's
thank you, Mom. Thank you, Donyale.
So I think that was a powerful moment just for everyone in the theater to kind of hear that. So congratulations, you guys, on an amazing project. Shout out to Lightbox, the illustration. Whoever did the illustration was beautiful.
Henry, our illustrator, Jeff Friday, Jonathan Chin, Kramer, David Kramer, Simon Chin, Naylor Jefferson, our director.
Ed Perkins.
Oh yes, Ed Perkins. Yes, thank you, Ed Perkins. He's a great editor.
Director first.
Editor and director, yes, absolutely.
So what was your favorite Donyale photo?
Oh gosh, that's so hard. Because honestly, I don't think I've ever experienced one person who has taken so many incredible photos.
If you could pick
Well, okay, there's one, the first thing that popped into my head. There's an image of her in a water tank.
Okay.
And I mean, just the fact that she took this photo.
Yeah.
you
Was she
know,
floating?
Yes,
Yeah.
she's literally in a water tank.
Yeah.
I can't remember, wish I could think.
And that was a photo that Pat Cleveland saw when she was younger. That inspired her.
Yeah. So I think it's, it's like blue. She's wearing like a blue dress. It's like, she looks kind of like a mermaid.
She's like a chic mermaid.
They've almost made it look like she's under the sea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
So there's this
yes.
even
that's
vegetation,
actually
the
right. The behind the
vegetation in
scenes
there.
is the water tank, but you're right. It's actually.
And Melissa's not kidding when she says that it's hard for her to choose, because Melissa is a creative director, and so she's all about the image and photos. And she, during this whole process, she was like, no, wait, no, we pick a photo for the poster. No, wait, I want. They asked us for 3. Melissa would send 15. No, we appreciate it.
You guys were good.
Yeah, we appreciate
You had it bad because she did great work.
It was
she did
incredible.
great
It was
work.
incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're all about the story. Who was your best storyteller of Donyale on the film?
I think surprisingly, once we saw it on the big screen, I would say it's probably David Rowland.
Yes.
I mean, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was brilliant in person, he wasn't not, but it really came across, obviously, once it was all edited together. And I think he really shone. No, he really did.
No, and he's like that in real life. That's him.
Yeah.
He's larger than life, right? He's larger than life too.
absolutely.
It's fabulous. For those that don't know, the former model and artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Donyale's friend?
Yes.
And he just gave us so many like gems and details.
Details. The details are important.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, Miss Beverly Johnson. You guys had her apart.
I was going to say she was my favorite in the film, my favorite storyteller in the film. Actually, Beverly is the one that introduced us to David Rowland.
Okay.
Yeah, Beverly reached out to me and said, I know someone who was roommates with Donyale in Paris. You have to meet him. And so the one thing I want to say about Beverly is, not only was she a great storyteller in this film, but she was also just so generous. Just generous. Because in essence, if you think about it, this is like a de facto dethroning of her in history, right? Because for all these years, we've known her to be the first Black woman. But now we're saying that Donyale was the first Black woman. And here we have Beverly in our film saying she's here because she stands on the shoulders of Donyale Luna, And I think this is amazing. There's no ego here. We think of models, we think of with like ego trips and everything, but no, she was just so gracious and so generous.
She was incredible. We were really fortunate to have her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I agree with Isoul. It was really gracious of her to be as candid with us and honest as she was. There's a beautiful moment in the film, and we won't, no spoilers here, but watch it so they could see.
And she looks amazing.
She looks great.
I mean, she looks great.
But just to add to that, I mean, when you think about it, because that story of the first Black model on Vogue, I mean, that's just been the running for years, since 1974. She was 1974. So for her to discover that she wasn't, because that's her narrative too, that's like her sort of claim to fame, and then to find out and she wasn't, and then to just, like you said, just be so gracious about, because she could have gone a different way, it was American Vogue, it was British.
She could have chosen not to give
not be involved in that.
We heard many no's, and she could have been added to the list of no's that we did.
Give us the tea. Anybody that we need to know that should have been a part that didn't
That's when the cameras go off.
But I think like with anything in life, with something that's happening and you're experiencing a no, you're like, oh my God, why are they saying no, or why are we experiencing this negativity, so to speak? But then when everything is said and done, you realize that everything happens where it's supposed to happen.
Yes.
And then we look at this film, and I just believe that we have and I don't know what kind of bias when I say this, but what we have is like this beautiful film about this beautiful woman and her life, and it's a search for identity and the complexity of identity. And it's not just a fashion film with a parade of talking heads. it's really a film that people can walk away from, and they can not only see themselves, but they can see other people that they know and learn from it, and really just add to their life, you know. So yeah.
And I also felt like Donyale, as Dream said, her presence was here. Like she was, her spirit was there. And I always said, like, if someone's not in it or whoever's supposed to be in it will be, because she's sort of going to be dictating. I really felt that.
And the most important person is in it. Her voice is throughout, and it's Donyale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're really proud of this film.
You guys did an amazing job.
Thank you.
And if you guys have not watched the film, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find it.
It's on HBO and it's streaming on
Max.
Anything else they need to do? Any hashtags? Anything they need to do to get the film going?
Hashtag Donyale Luna HBO.
hashtag Seen in Black.
Hashtag Donyale Luna official.
Okay, there we go. And make sure you guys follow all three of them on their social media platforms.
Like what is this? It's melissa.j.kramer.
At Isoul Harris.
At Mel Sharee.
Okay, and of course, you guys are all zapped in with Zap Exclusive. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Zap.
Thanks for having us.